How is this possible? 10 years she's been in a coma. And now, pregnant? You have to be kidding me.
Oh, get him out. He did this to me. Tell him to get away from me.
Crestview General Hospital wasn't a place people visited unless they had no choice. Bright walls, polished floors, soft beeping monitors, the kind of environment meant to make you feel calm, even though everyone walking inside carried some kind of pain. For James, Crestview had become more familiar than his own home. 10 years. Every day. Same routine. He was 45 now, but the tiredness in his face made him look older. His wife, Rachel, had been brought here after a terrible accident when she was just 33. One moment, they were driving home from family dinner. The next, her world, and his, had frozen. She never woke up. Her room was always the same, quiet, dim, the window blinds half open just enough to lend sunlight. Machines breathed for her, monitored her, kept her stable. A photo of happier days sat at her bedside, Rachel laughing with their daughter, Maya, at the beach. James always straightened it whenever he arrived. He came straight from work, still in his office shirt, sleeves rolled up. He didn't care how tired he was. As long as Rachel was here, he would be here. He pulled up a chair, took her hand gently, the way he had done thousands of times, and started talking. Traffic was terrible today, he said softly. Your favorite radio station still plays that song you hate. No response. Just the steady rhythm of machines. He opened a book, the same novel he had been reading for months, 1 page a day. It wasn't about finishing the story. It was about sharing something with her, anything, so she didn't feel alone. Even if she couldn't hear him, he believed she somehow did. The doctors had told him years ago, she will likely never wake up. But James didn't believe in giving up on someone you love. He hadn't dated anyone. He hadn't even tried. His world was work, home, and Rachel. That was it. He cooked for one, slept alone, and walked around with a wedding ring that never left his finger. Their daughter, Maya, was 20 now. She had grown up without a conscious mother, and the weight of that showed in her eyes whenever she came to visit. Dad, she said one afternoon, gently placing a hand on his shoulder. You don't have to do this forever. Mom wouldn't want you stuck like this. But James shook his head. She's still my wife. My vows didn't expire. Maya had dropped the conversation there. She knew how stubborn he was. She also knew how deeply he loved. And then there was Dr. Philip Harrison, Rachel's neurologist. Crestview trusted him. Experienced, respected, well known for his calm, professional demeanor. He had been the one overseeing Rachel's care since day one. Every week, he came in to check her vitals, adjust medications, review scans. He was kind, steady, always composed. James appreciated him. Thank you, doctor, James said one evening as Harrison finished examining Rachel. You've looked after her for 10 years. I don't take that for granted. Dr. Harrison offered a small nod. She's a long-term patient, James. We do the best we can. It sounded simple, but James believed him. Crestview had become a second home to him, and Harrison was part of that routine. Predictable, professional, trustworthy. Days turned into months. Months turned into years. Nothing ever changed. Still, James came. Still, Rachel slept. Still, the machines hummed. It was a quiet kind of heartbreak, one that didn't explode but slowly drained you year after year. He kissed her forehead before leaving every night. Good night, my love. I'll be here tomorrow. And he always was. What James didn't know, what no one at Crestview suspected, was that their quiet routine was already cracking beneath the surface. An event was coming that would break the hospital's peace, shake the entire country, and turn his world upside down in a way he never imagined. The first sign was small, barely noticeable, something a nurse would spot by accident. But for now, the night was calm. Rachel slept. James walked to the parking lot with his usual tired hope. And Crestview General Hospital stood quietly, holding a secret that would soon change everything. 9 years passed, and nothing seemed different. Until one ordinary Tuesday morning. Nurse Amaka, who had worked Rachel's wing for years, began her usual checks: temperature, blood pressure, general observations. She flipped through Rachel's chart, comparing the numbers. That's when she paused. Something didn't add up. Rachel's body showed small but noticeable changes, slight weight gain, hormonal shifts, metabolic numbers that didn't match her long-term vegetative condition. At first, Amaka thought maybe she misread the chart. She double-checked, then triple-checked. No, the numbers were real. Her heart rate picked up. This can't be right. She ran the standard tests. The rapid indicators triggered a warning she had never seen before on Rachel's profile. She swallowed hard, set down the file, and immediately called Dr. Harrison. When he arrived, she handed him the results in silence. He reviewed them once, then again, then slowly sat down, staring at the paper as if the words were written in a language he'd never seen before. His hands trembled. "This must be a mistake," he whispered. "Run it again. Don't tell anyone yet." The nurse nodded, her expression tightening with concern. She retested everything. The second results came back identical. Rachel was pregnant, approximately 12 weeks along. Dr. Harrison closed his office door and locked it. Then he locked it again. He stood there, breathing heavily, pacing the small space. He stared at the medical chart, then at Rachel's decade-long file, flipping pages fast, hands sweaty. This can't be happening. Not now, not like this. He checked old notes, medication logs, surveillance records. Nothing made sense. Nothing matched the impossible fact in front of him. A woman who had not moved, spoken, responded, or even blinked intentionally in 10 years was somehow carrying a child. He rubbed his forehead, trying to steady himself. He had to tell the one person who trusted him most. But how? How do you explain something that defies every rule of medicine and humanity? Later that evening, James walked into the room with fresh flowers, his usual yellow lilies, and a warm smile that had never lost its loyalty. He sat beside Rachel, kissed her hand, and began reading the next page of the same novel, like always. That was when Dr. Harrison appeared at the door. "James," he said quietly, "we need to talk." James bookmarked the page, confused. The tone alone told him this wasn't about medication or routine updates. In the hallway, Dr. Harrison took a breath that seemed to drain him. "Something unexpected has happened," he began. James frowned, waiting. The doctor continued, voice shaking slightly. "Your wife, Rachel, is pregnant. About 3 months along." The book James was holding slipped from his hand and hit the floor. He stood frozen. "That's impossible," he whispered. "She's been in a coma for 10 years. She hasn't moved. She hasn't." His chest tightened, words failing him. "How is this possible?" Dr. Harrison shook his head. "James, we know you're the one mostly around her, and that's questionable. We ran the test twice. We are still investigating. But the results, they're conclusive." James stared at him, first with disbelief, then confusion, then something darker. His mind moved fast, connecting dots he didn't want to connect. "Is this some kind of joke?" he asked quietly. "Are you?" He didn't say the word, but it hung between them like a shadow. Dr. Harrison looked away. James returned to Rachel's bedside that night, staring at her still body as his world shifted under him. He touched her hand, whispering, "I don't know what's happening, but I'm here. I'll protect you. I promise." Outside his room, whispers spread through the corridors of Crestview. A secret had surfaced, one that would soon explode far beyond the hospital walls. And this was only the beginning. For a moment, the hospital felt strangely calm, until Dr. Harrison shattered that calm with one phone call. By noon, the administrators, security heads, and 2 detectives were seated around a long meeting table. Nobody expected the doctor they respected for 10 years to walk in looking shaken, carrying a folder thick with printed screenshots. He cleared his throat, voice tight. "I need to report something deeply disturbing, and it involves a coma patient and her husband." The room shifted. Chairs moved. Eyes lifted. He continued, steady, controlled, rehearsed. For 10 years, James has been alone with Rachel. Hours and hours every single day. Unsupervised. No cameras inside the room. No nurse present. No restrictions. He slid photos across the table. Screenshots from security footage showing James entering, leaving, leaning close to Rachel's bedside. He's the only person with this level of access, Harrison added. If something happened, it could only be him. The detectives exchanged a look. The seed of suspicion had been planted. Dr. Harrison stood, remote in hand, and dimmed the lights. A projector screen came on. He played footage, pointing out moments where James quietly closed the blinds, dimmed the room lights, pulled a chair close. Everything normal, but twisted the way Harrison presented it. Look, he closes the door completely. No visibility from the hallway. Notice how long he stays alone with her. 2 hours, 3 hours, sometimes 4. This kind of access is unusual. He sounded reluctant, as if he hated to say it, which made it more believable. By 2 p.m., police asked James to come in. He walked into the room, smiling politely, expecting updates about Rachel. Instead, he found detectives waiting with straight faces and a recorder on the table. Mr. James, one detective said, your wife is pregnant. You visited her every day for 10 years. You've been alone with her for long hours. Can you explain that? James stared at them, stunned. Explain what? A beat. Are you saying No. She's unconscious. She's my wife. I would never do anything like that. The detective leaned in. DNA will clarify everything. If you didn't do anything inappropriate, you have nothing to worry about. Test me, James snapped. Test everyone who ever stepped into that room. Someone did this, but it wasn't me. After hours of questioning, drained and trembling, James stepped out of the room, only to find Dr. Harrison waiting in the hallway, face lowered like a grieving friend. He approached gently. James, I'm so sorry they're suspecting you. I told them you love your wife. I try to defend you. James exhaled shakily, clinging to the doctor he trusted most. You know me, doctor. You've seen me sit with her for 10 years. Tell them I wouldn't do this. Dr. Harrison placed a hand on his shoulder, voice soft. I want to believe you. I really do. But you're the only one with that kind of access. I have to stay objective. And just like that, James felt the floor sinking beneath him. Within 48 hours, he was restricted from visiting Rachel alone. Then the story leaked. Husband suspected after coma patient found pregnant. 10-year coma. Husband under investigation. His phone buzzed nonstop with insults. People he'd never met called him a monster. He was suspended from work. Neighbors avoided him. Even Maya, his daughter, looked at him through wet eyes. Dad, I want to believe you, but I need to know. Did you? The words stabbed deeper than any headline. I would never hurt your mother, he whispered. Someone is framing me. I know it, but the world didn't. Behind the scenes, Dr. Harrison kept quietly feeding the flames, guiding detectives toward clues, placing James's belongings in places he never visited, subtly shifting logs and files to make it look like James had accessed medical storage rooms. By the end of 2 weeks, detectives were preparing charges. James sat alone on his couch, head in his hands, watching his entire life fall apart. While in the dim solitude of Rachel's room, Harrison leaned close to her unconscious form and whispered, Your husband is taking the fall for me. Perfect, isn't it? The hospital was holding its breath. DNA results were delayed again. Another week, the lab said. High workload, technical backlog. Everyone pretended to be patient, but the tension was thick enough to choke on. Nurses whispered when James walked past. A man already dragged through the mud doesn't get clean that easily. Meanwhile, Dr. Harrison walked through the hallways with a calmness that felt wrong. Too relaxed. Too confident. He even smiled once. That small, self-satisfied smile that made the hairs on the back of James's neck rise. Rachel, now 8 months pregnant, lay in her bed with her belly round and full, the baby moving often, nurses murmuring about how healthy she suddenly looked. Her body was waking up before she did. And then came a night, everything changed. It was late, quiet. The kind of quiet hospitals only get around 11 p.m., when the world outside slows and the hall lights dim. James sat at Rachel's bedside like he always did, reading softly, his fingers curled around hers. He read the same book he'd read 1,000 times, the only one she used to fall asleep to. Then, her finger twitched. James froze. He leaned closer. Rachel? Rachel, can you hear me? Her finger moved again, a small, trembling shift. Then her eyelids fluttered, slow and uneven, like someone trying to wake from the deepest ocean. James shot to his feet. "Oh my God, nurse! Somebody help! Nurse!" The room erupted. Alarms. Footsteps. Voices. A rush of nurses, and then Dr. Harrison. He stepped in, adjusting his coat, ready to take control of the moment. "What's happening?" He stopped. Rachel's eyes were open. Not fully focused, not quite steady, but open. Seeing the world again for the first time in 10 years. And when those eyes found him, every last drop of color drained from her face. Her gaze sharpened, recognizing something her voice hadn't been allowed to speak for a decade. Then she screamed. A raw, broken, throat-scraped scream. "No! Get him out! Get away from me!" James stumbled backward, shocked. "Rachel, it's okay. You're safe. This is Dr. Harrison. He's been..." Her panic intensified. "I know who he is. He did this to me. He's the one." The room froze. Nurses stared. James stared. Harrison stared, stunned, but only for 1 second before slipping into his calm doctor voice. "Rachel, you're confused. You've been asleep for 10 years. Your mind is mixing things up." Rachel cut him off with a trembling, furious whisper. "I wasn't asleep." Silence swallowed the room. "I wasn't asleep," she repeated louder. "I was awake. Trapped. I could hear everything." James felt his knees weaken. "You were conscious?" Rachel's voice cracked. "He came to me at night. Late. He would send the nurses away." Dr. Harrison flinched. Rachel continued, breath shaking but words sharp. 2 months ago, you were on the phone with our daughter Maya, arguing about her college grades." A nurse gasped. James looked at Harrison, stunned. Rachel pressed on. 3 months ago, you talked about our anniversary trip. You call me Isabella, my second name after." Harrison's voice broke. "How could you possibly? You were unconscious. You couldn't have." Rachel sobbed. "I felt everything. Every time you touched me. Every minute. I was screaming inside, but my body wouldn't move." Harrison tried one last performance. "She's delusional. It's false memory, coming out of a coma." Rachel cut him again, pointing a shaking finger. "You have a scar on your left shoulder. A surgical scar. Roll up your sleeves, let us see." Harrison hesitated, his mouth snapped shut. That detail wasn't in his medical file. Only someone deeply close to him would know. Someone called the security immediately. "This is insane. She's lying. Where's the proof?" Dr. Harrison screamed back. Rachel whispered the final nail. "The DNA will prove it. That baby is yours." Harrison bolted. He didn't even think. He just ran. But security tackled him halfway down the hall, pinning him until police arrived. His voice echoed through the corridor as they cuffed him. "I want a lawyer. She's mentally unstable. DNA will prove I'm innocent." James rushed back to Rachel, holding her as she cried. "I'm so sorry," he whispered, shaking. "I should have known. I should have protected you." Rachel closed her eyes, exhausted. "You couldn't have known," she said weakly. "He made sure of that. He kept me sedated so I couldn't fight. And for the first time in 10 years, she wasn't trapped anymore." Dr. Harrison sat alone, held without bail, pending DNA results. In the Gray County Jail interview room, wrists chained to the table, still maintaining the same calm confidence he'd used for years. He said, "She's confused," he told detectives. "Coma distortion. I cared for her. I did nothing wrong." But the world outside wasn't convinced. News vans crowded the entrance of Crestview General Hospital. Commentators debated Rachel's testimony endlessly, some defending her, others claiming she must be mistaken. For the first time in weeks, however, James walked the halls without shame. Rachel's awakening had finally cleared him, and every whisper that had followed him was gone. Maya never left her mother's side. "Mom, we believe you," she said each morning. "We'll prove everything." Rachel, still regaining strength, spent long hours speaking with investigators. She remembered dates, conversations, the rhythm of footsteps in her room. Every detail lined up. Then new doctors examined her, studying years of charts. One of them finally said the words that changed everything. She was conscious, completely. Locked-in syndrome. Rachel nodded slowly. "I was awake," she whispered. "I heard everything. I felt everything. I just couldn't move. It was like being buried alive. And he knew. Her medication logs revealed a disturbing pattern. Every slight sign her body showed of emerging from paralysis had been followed by a sudden increase in sedation. The doses weren't high enough to erase awareness, only enough to trap her in silence. The police moved quickly. The DNA lab was instructed to rush the results. 2 days later, an officer walked into a conference room carrying a sealed envelope. Inside were hospital administrators, detectives, prosecutors, all waiting. James and Rachel watched through a video link from her hospital room. The lead analyst opened the document. "The DNA test confirms," she read, "Dr. Philip Harrison is the biological father of the fetus." The room erupted, gasps, disbelief, quiet horror. Rachel closed her eyes. James exhaled with a trembling release he'd held for months. And miles away in his jail cell, Dr. Harrison's composure finally cracked. Prosecutors filed charges immediately: abuse of authority, false imprisonment, extreme medical misconduct, and other non-graphic but severe offenses. An expanded investigation uncovered 3 more long-term female patients whose sedation records followed similar disturbing patterns. Nurse Sarah came forward first. Others followed, admitting they had long suspected him but feared the consequences of speaking up. The trial became national news. Rachel testified at 9 months pregnant, voice steady despite the weight of the moment. "I was conscious but voiceless for 10 years, she told the jury. "He used my silence as permission." 2 other former coma patients gave their testimonies as well, describing the same pattern of control and manipulation. It took the jury only 3 hours. Guilty on every single count. The judge handed down the maximum sentence, 50 years without parole. Harrison showed no remorse, only muttering about being misunderstood as officers let him out. 2 weeks later, Rachel gave birth to a healthy baby girl. She held her child close, then broke down. "I love her," she whispered, "but when I look at her, I see moments I'm still trying to heal from. I don't know how to do this." James sat beside her gently. "Whatever you need, we'll figure it out together." Maya touched her mother's hand. "Mom, she's my sister. She didn't choose any of this. Let's raise her. All of us. As a family." Rachel looked at her husband, then at her daughter, and nodded. "As a family," she said softly. "She stays with us." They named her Hope. A year later, Rachel could walk short distances with support. She spoke at conferences advocating for patient protections and locked-in syndrome awareness. New medical reform laws passed nationwide. At one event, she stood at a podium with a walker beside her and ended her speech with quiet strength. "For 10 years, I screamed in silence. Now I speak for every patient who cannot speak for themselves." The audience rose in applause. James wiped tears. Maya held baby Hope in her arms. A family healing together.